social media is a highlight reel. Like a lot of the things that we're saying are not fully validated a lot of the times. And it's important to remember that it is influencing, like people on there are influencers and they're influencing you um, in ways that sometimes can tarnish that self-talk that we have. So I needed to be able to build up the barrier and the boundary in order to kind of like cognitively challenge that and be like, okay, I can swipe past it.
Hi,
So,
Keke. So happy that we get to see
hi.
each other again. And I really appreciate all that you do for Silver Bell Global. And you've helped us with our Nourish group for many years now, almost 4 years. You're finishing your master's program. You just did your intern from Penn in the Balance in New York City. And you
Mhm.
are recovering from your own eating disorder. I mean, not at this moment, but of course, we're always recovering. I'm
Always.
curious, how has social media impacted your recovery? And then we'll go back to how it impacted, just the ED as it started to creep up into your life many years ago.
Yeah. Hi. It's so
Hi.
nice to see you and be here. Um, how did social media impact my recovery? That's a good question. I think honestly, during the stages of my recovery where I was really struggling, I needed to step back from a lot of things, including social media, exercise. Sometimes when you've overdone something for so long, you kind of need to take it away and like titrate it back into your daily schedule. And so when I was at the peak of my recovery, I decided to take a step back just because social media is so powerful. There's so much good that can come with it and from it if you're practicing
Mhm.
in a mindful way, both engaging and posting. But I think like you could say the same about exercise, you could say the same about nourishing yourself, but when you overdo something and when you are motivated in doing something from a place of nervousness, of insecurity, the results are going to be different, right? And so I was using social media from a place of comparison, from a place of body negativity, negative self-talk, etc. And so social media for me at that moment kind of played that part and that narrative that fed that self-saboteur in me that was kind of like, see, I told you like you're not good enough in comparison to this person. You should be doing this, you should be doing more of this. Um, and I think unfortunately, that's the case a lot. And so I kind of had to build my own internal validation back before being able to explore external validation from social media and also um, looking at it and engaging and having the ability to cognitively challenge those thoughts.
When you say you took a step back, can you just give us the micro of that? Was it 3 weeks, 3 months? Was it checking your phone once a day? What was the initial engagement to give yourself and your mind a rest from the compare and despair that we all find ourselves in often?
Yeah, I think probably 6 months.
That's beautiful. How did that
Yeah.
feel? What was that like?
It was kind of nice.
Mhm. Well, how did you know it was nice? What was the indicators in your body and your mind or your daily life that you were like, oh, this is nice?
I just didn't have that tool that I used to validate the negative self-talk so readily available in my hand. Like whenever I had a second, whether I was stepping into an elevator or like waiting at a red light, which is like so bad, but we all got to do it. Um, I didn't have that to just slip into and then start a conversation or a narrative in my head. And I needed that 6 months to really get to a place where I was able to cognitively challenge those wounded thoughts and narratives with, like social media is a highlight reel. Like a lot of the things that we're saying are not fully validated a lot of the times. And it's important to remember that it is influencing, like people on there are influencers and they're influencing you. Um, in ways that sometimes can tarnish that self-talk that we have. So I needed to be able to build up the barrier and the boundary in order to kind of like cognitively challenge that and be like, okay, I can swipe past it.
When you you have these thoughts that would normally come up and you are eliminating the catalyst, let's say, to help feed them. What did you
Mhm.
replace it with? How did you have a therapist that offered you, affirmations? Some people love affirmations, some people say no, some people just say get out and get busy in life. Like, what did you do to help you in those 6 months replace thoughts that might have been negative?
Um, a lot of the time at the beginning, I really did like fake it until I make it. Like
Yeah.
fake it until I
Fake,
make it.
fake what though? Explain a fake.
The positive conversation within my head, and like instead of going on social media and kind of like using that as a catalyst for like the negative narrative, I would listen to a podcast, I would call a friend. Reaching out to people really helped get me out of my mind, even if it was just honestly going to the grocery store and exchanging like
Mhm.
a very small 5-word conversation with somebody.
Hmm.
Um, it just kind of helped me get out of my own head
I,
and body.
I am big on the grocery store engagement. That was my
Love
saving
it.
grace. I love a grocery store. Now it's careful with an eating disorder, so that's really up to the individual and where they are
Of
in
course. I
the
mean, it could be a
recovery.
post office,
It could be. The
anything.
laundromat, I love a
Laundry.
dry
I
cleaner.
love,
Love me the dry cleaners.
I'm besties with my dry cleaners. I'm like, how
Same,
are the kids?
same. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. But it's those
Oh,
little things that really
it
help you
is.
kind of like reground and get out of your own space
Yeah,
that can sometimes feel really tumultuous when you're going through those growing pains
absolutely.
of
And
getting.
you must still weave this into your life, even though you're back on social media today. So
Mhm.
when you did start integrating social media to the positive, right? And we can all
Yeah.
slip and slide to the negative. So two questions. One is how do you weave social media into your life today and still remain engaged with the grocery store, the clerks, the mail? And then how do you catch yourself when you are on social media starting to slip?
Yeah, I think I really look at the first question, how I manage it. I really set some boundaries for myself, and I look at, checking in and being like, am I grabbing this for validation? Do I feel insecure in this moment? What's motivating me to look at it? And I try to go on only once or twice a day, which sounds very doable, but when you're used to just like opening your phone and like subconsciously going to a social media app, it is kind of hard. And so I try to go on and engage for a little bit once a day and then just like not practice going on
Mhm.
casually.
Okay.
I try to have an intention when I'm going
Yep.
on it, whether it's to share something personal, to support my friends on it, to look something up, etc. Like I want to use it as a tool intentionally.
Hmm.
And having the boundary of doing that once a day kind of stops me from like just opening it up and like going
Well,
on.
but two things you said that are really powerful. Going on to support my friends. And then I think that's a great beginning of when you re-enter. So I think I can't say that enough. Supporting your friends on their missions, whatever, if you're aligned with it or their platforms, whatever they're speaking to, or just support in general, I think that's such a great way to view social media. How can I help the next person that I'm aligned with? And then, well, you say you go on once a day. But what is that? Once a day could be 5 hours, it could be 5 minutes. What is that for you?
Sometimes, honestly, I've set an alarm on my phone
Okay.
because even when I'm trying to post something myself, I don't want to overthink it. I don't want to engage in something that is so curated that it's taking me 2 hours to like choose things to post. I want to be intentional, obviously, with what I'm posting. But I think like I set a 30-minute alarm when I'm trying to create a post because I want it to have that balance of like, yes, there is intention behind it. Yes, these photos are curated in a way that I would like to express myself, but it's not curated in a way where it's losing, my own take on how I want to represent myself, my own artistic value
Mhm.
behind it. And so the 30-minute alarm kind of like gives me
Okay.
that.
That's in my world, that's a good amount of time. I'll sporadically go
Mhm.
on because I don't spend a lot of time on it. I'll check in,
Yeah.
I'll support my friends. I'm so glad you said that because it's so important. And I really find that new relationships are being established in a healthy way or reaffirming someone who you didn't know that well by
Mhm.
supporting them on Instagram. And I think it's a really healthy asset that it can bring if your circle is wise and shall we say, um, not spewing competitive natures, which
Yeah.
can happen a lot with the younger demographics.
I wanted to touch, I guess, on like something that I've become more aware of and use myself. Um, I've read some studies on it, but it's basically like the slippery slope of wellness culture and how it's kind of like rebranded diet fads and things that
Oh, that's a good
now
one. Sure.
now like the verbiage behind a diet fad is like negative, so we're going to rebrand it to like self-care and wellness when it's really kind of selling you the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to remember and to use to cognitively challenge those things because when you're scrolling, like you are being influenced, you are being sold things,
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
whether it's an idea, and like we're all going to succumb to being influenced by things. I mean, that's the human nature. And I'm not going to say I don't because sometimes I see things and I'm like, this got me good. I need to try it.
I totally, 100%. I'll own it. Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
And so I think there's like, I just try to look for specific verbiage that I kind of like red flag, like detox or cheat day or
Mhm.
toxic ingredients and like things that
Yeah.
just seem very like black and white and it's
Yeah.
not in that gray area that's still like exploratory because you can be influenced and explore something new. But I think to my point, the verbiage of like it's either this way or no way.
Let's talk about that because there
Yeah.
is some terms and some new language. I don't like to use the term black and white. I like to use all or nothing, right? So I just want to put
Yeah.
that out there. And I think when you see extremes in anything, it's buyer beware. What is the extremity unless you have a real health concern? And so eliminating all fat or all carbs or just
Yes.
eating a raw diet or just eating steak, like unless it's clinically, and I mean diagnosably clinical by a dietitian who sits down and says, this is what your body needs to heal. Which
Hmm.
for eating disorders, it is not.
Yes,
All food is
exactly.
good food, you know?
Yeah.
So I think you're not wrong on that. And I maybe am not paying attention to that as much. I'm not as influenced by fad, shall we say, diets or wellness culture, but I know many of my colleagues and friends are. And I've watched the pendulum swing, and I definitely will not encourage it, but I won't discourage it because it's part of their journey. But if you're somebody who hasn't been on that pendulum yet and you're a young 18 to 25, 30-year-old, what advice would you give to them so when they're like on Instagram scrolling and they're like, oh well, yeah, this makes so much sense. I need to, eliminate all of this X from my diet. What would you say to them?
Um, I would just say to check the facts, like make sure that the resources that whatever that person is saying, whatever the narrative is, like make sure that the resources are there, make sure that there's some kind of uh what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, there's a lot of studies that they say you can find a study for anything to support your point. There's nothing. So how do you know when you're up to a good study? Well, how would you fact check a study if someone's saying eliminating all fat from your diet? We know that that isn't healthy, right? And a limited amount, sure, but how would we know what studies? Where do we fact check those? What research institutes do you lean on?
Um, I think honestly, I wouldn't even call it fact checking on the research. I would call it fact checking on yourself and what's motivating you to be interested in that.
Love
Um,
that. Well, what if it's I
because
want to lose weight? I want to lose weight, right? So
so
how do I
if
discern
you're
that?
yeah, if you're exploring this fad diet based off of insecurity or fear or not feeling good enough and wanting to change something about yourself in a way that feels your nervous system, like you can feel the difference between coming to something in like a more calm and like passionate kind of compassionate way versus like feeling very like, okay, I need to fix this. I don't feel this way and I want to feel this way. How do I get there? And a lot of the time, social media
Yeah, it
is,
gets you in a loop. It does.
yes.
Yeah. I
And
think
so
that
I think that's what I'd fact check.
I think that's great. There is like a phonetic anxiety that creeps up when you feel you have to really get into this, let's call it a diet for lack of a better word, a way of eating that
Mhm.
will fix all the issues. And when you start eating that way, you exhale if you're just eating meat, right? And you're doing like a keto. Nothing wrong with
Yeah.
keto as long as it's done with, to your point, in a mindful exploration, curious way versus
Mhm.
I have to do this, then I'll lose the weight, then I'll do this, because we all know that that isn't sustainable. It might have a temporary gain of losing weight, but the value, to your point, isn't yielded in the maintenance of the lifestyle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely something that I agree with and have to check myself on sometimes too, like what's the motivation behind me engaging, what I'm looking for, what's catching my eye, and like, yeah, where that motivation's coming from.
Beautiful.